Hello, I'm Dr. Jim Taylor, and welcome to Prime Sport Alert. In this segment of Prime Sport Alert, I'm going to discuss Prime Sport profiling. The first step in achieving your athletic goals involves gaining a better understanding of yourself as an athlete. This self-understanding then results in greater improvement and better performance. Becoming the best athlete you can be is complicated. You probably have a busy life filled with sports, school, work, family, social life, and other activities. It's difficult to find the time to do everything. By understanding yourself, you'll know what you'll need to work on to be efficient and focused in your efforts. In developing greater self-understanding, you must recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. Most athletes love to talk about their strengths, but don't like to admit that they have weaknesses. This attitude will actually limit your athletic development and keep you from achieving your goals. Most athletes think that they're as good as their greatest strengths. For example, a tennis player that believes that his power and his height advantage will enable him to win, and that his lack of quickness and consistency won't hurt him as much. The truth is, however, that you're only as good as your biggest weakness. Returning to that tennis example, if the player's opponent is fast and a good counterpuncher, his power and height can be neutralized, and his lack of speed and consistency may determine the outcome of the match. Think of athletic strengths and weaknesses as a mathematical equation. On a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is very poor and 10 is the best, if a basketball player is a good shooter, say an 8, but a poor defender, say a 2, her overall performance would be pretty moderate. 8 plus 2 equals 10. And if she focused on and improved her shooting, say from an 8 to a 9, she wouldn't improve that much overall because she's already a capable shooter and there isn't much room for improvement. So a 9 plus 2 is 11. But if she improved her defense from 2 to 7, then her overall performance would rise dramatically. 8 plus 7 is 15. Of course you want to continue to build your strengths, but the more you improve your weaknesses, the higher your overall performance is and the more successful you'll be. A difficulty with dealing with the mental aspects of sport is that they're not tangible or easily measured. If you want to learn what your physical strengths and weaknesses are, you can go through a comprehensive physical testing program that gives you objective data about your physical condition. I want you to think about Prime Sport profiling as physical testing for the mind. It makes mental issues related to your sport more concrete. It's important for you to have an open mind with Prime Sport profiling. Rather than being uncomfortable with facing your weaknesses, you should be willing to consider the information in a positive and constructive way. When weaknesses are identified, it doesn't mean that you're incapable of performing well. It may be that you haven't had to use those skills at your current level, or you've been able to hide them with the strengths you have. But the information you gain from Prime Sport profiling will enable you to improve and have a better chance of achieving your goals. The Prime Sport profile is comprised of 12 mental, emotional, and competitive factors that impact sports performance. To complete the Prime Sport profile, read the description of each factor and rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale. Then follow the instructions for evaluating your score and developing an action plan to develop your strengths and alleviate your weaknesses. Now let me describe those 12 factors of the Prime Performance Profile. Motivation. How determined are you to train and compete to achieve your goals? 1 is not at all motivated, 10 is very motivated. Confidence. How strongly you believe in your ability to achieve your athletic goals. A 1 is not at all confident, a 10 is very confident. Intensity. Whether your physical intensity helps or hurts your competitive performances. A 1 hurts where you're either too anxious or too relaxed, and a 10 helps where your intensity is just right. Focus. That's how well you're able to stay focused on performing your best and avoid distractions. A 1 is totally distracted, a 10 is totally focused. Emotions. Whether you have control over your emotions and they help you perform well, or you lose control of your emotions and they hurt your competitive performances. A 1 is you lose control, hurts. 10 is you have total control, and it helps. Consistency. How well you're able to maintain a consistently high level of performance during competition. A 1 is not at all consistent. 10, very consistent. Routines. How much you use routines in your preparations, including in training, before, and during competitions. A 1 is never. A 10 is often. Competitor. How you perform in competitions as compared to training. A 1 is you perform much worse. A 10 is you perform much better. Adversity. How you respond to difficult conditions when you're faced with in competition. 1 is you don't respond well at all, quite poorly, or 10, you respond really well to adversity. Pressure, how you perform in difficult competitive situations, such as when you're behind. 1 is you perform poorly, 10 is you perform well. Ally, whether you're your best ally or your worst enemy during a competition. A 1 is your worst enemy, 10 is your best ally. Finally, prime sport, how often you're able to achieve and maintain your highest level of competitive performance. 1 is never, 10 is often. Having completed the prime sport profile, you now have a clear picture of what you believe to be the mental strengths and weaknesses in your sport. Typically, a score below an 8 indicates an area on which you need to work. Place a question mark next to each factor that you scored as less than an 8. These are the factors that you'll want to consider working on in your prime sport program. From these checked factors, select 3 to focus on in the immediate future. It doesn't make sense to deal with every one all at once. You'll just become overloaded and won't give adequate attention to any one of them. It's best to focus on a few, strengthen them, and then move on to others. The question is, if you have more than 3 factors on which you need to work, which one should you choose? The decision should be based on several concerns. First, you should look at which ones are most important for your long-term development. Just like working on physical and technical aspects of your sport, you should focus on the factors that will help you in the long run. Second, some weaknesses are symptoms of other weaknesses. By dealing with one factor, another one can be relieved without working on it directly. For example, you may not handle pressure that well because you lack confidence. Well, by building your confidence, you also improve your ability to handle pressure. Third, you need to balance the immediate training and competitive needs that you have with your long-term development. You may have an important competition coming up for which you need to be ready. For example, you may decide that you need to improve your focus and your intensity immediately, even though working on your motivation and confidence will be more important in the future. On a blank sheet of paper, indicate the 3 mental factors that you want to work on in the near future. By reading one of my Prime Sport book series, another of the many excellent sports psychology books that are available, or the articles you can read for free of charge on my website, you can learn about techniques and exercises that will help you strengthen the areas you've selected. By setting goals for the areas you want to improve on and developing an action plan of how to achieve those goals, you can systematically develop the areas you've identified in your Prime Sport profile. You can also use the Prime Sport profiling to measure progress in your training. Periodically, perhaps every few months, complete the profile and compare it with your past profiles. You should see improvement in the areas on which you've worked. Also, ask your coaches about positive changes they've seen in those areas. When your ratings move to an 8 or above, select another factor to work on and follow the same procedure. If you'd like to receive a copy of Prime Sport Profiling, email me at jim@drjimtaylor.com. That's jim@drjimtaylor.com. I'm Dr. Jim Taylor for Prime Sport Alert.